Welcome to the Blueprints Podcast. I'm Isabelle again with Custom Built Design and Remodeling, here with Michael Flory, founder, CEO, and my dad. And today we're excited to dive into a topic that we have talked a lot about as a leadership team, and really that's building culture. So to kick it off, why has culture been so key in what we're doing and how we're growing a team here at Custom Built?
Well, one of the things I've learned is that you are the culture, and what I mean by that is that everything starts with you, the entrepreneur. And if you're not going to take care of yourself and do the things that you that first, like for me as an entrepreneur, when I first started, it was like, someday we'll get to this place and then I'll invest in myself, and then I'll start doing that workout, and then I'll start doing that. And what I realized as an entrepreneur is that, that day never comes. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to start building culture, I got to build it today, but I got to start with, it starts with me. It starts with me taking care of myself and me, really putting myself in a position where I'm doing the things that are going to impact this business the most. And along the way, like one of the keys to building culture for me has been hiring coaches. So as a business owner, I've invested in a lot of coaching, a lot of counseling, and a lot of, process building, things like that. But the coaching always seems to come back to both mostly dealing with who I am. And I think in order to build a culture of people that you want around, you got to find people that have the same drive and desire to become wholehearted. Our core focus, we kind of worked on this, but we kind of summed it down to impacting families, and how do we impact families? We take places that people live and turn them into homes they love. So those are the people that we're doing the remodeling for. But what about the people that are a part of our company? Doesn't matter how big your company is, if it's 5, 10, or 40, like those people got to feel like they're part of something. And that's how you start building culture.
So give us some examples of ways that you've practically done that growing this business.
Yeah. So a recent one for me in the last couple of years that came to me from my coach was thinking about the people in the company that I was spending the most time with, and as the company grew and we went from 5 to 10 to 20, 20 to 40, like I couldn't be with everybody anymore. And people didn't, let's say we hired a new advisor or a new salesperson. I wouldn't necessarily get to have as much FaceTime with them, where like when I first, started working with, let's say Brian, back 5 years ago, him and I would go out on all the appointments with him. You
spent a lot of time in the truck with him, right behind the windshield.
Yeah, a lot of windshield time and things like that. And what I found that as the leader, that I needed to spend more time with the people that were succeeding. And that's a cultural shift, a shift from, I'm going to try to get everybody to implement this new marketing system that when we implemented They Ask You Answer, and doing inbound marketing and having all of our advisors send out emails and
creating videos. That was a big thing, right? A big culture shift for us is a video first mindset.
Right.
So we focused on.
So we could have focused on trying to get everybody to do that, or we can focus on whoever's doing that was willing to create the videos, willing to create the blogs, but spend more time with them, help them be more successful at that. And then high tide raises all ships. As they start having success in sales, then other advisors will be like, well, how are you doing those videos? What is this? And it's played out like that. And it was even, so that was a big culture shift, right? It was how many years ago? 22 when we started implementing that. Really didn't start implementing it for probably 6 months. So really 23, but getting everybody doing that wasn't an easy lift, and it was resisted in a lot of ways because it was change. So how do you change that culture? Well, you work with the ones that are doing it or willing to do it, and then you bring in new ones. So we brought in new salespeople, and it was like from the very beginning, this is how we do. This is part of your onboarding. You're creating videos,
this is the book that you're going to read. It'll give you conviction to why you're going to do this, how to be successful with it.
Yep. And then I think like just authentically being who we are. So I'm, part of our core values is grow or die. And like, I'm a constant trying new things, hacking the system and doing whatever I can.
Cold plunges.
Yeah. Doing whatever I can to become a more wholehearted person. And like, that's always been a part of me. And so when we hire somebody, and if we hire them and that's not who they are, like they would just rather never change and stay the way they are. And, they're not gonna necessarily be a great fit in our culture of a bunch of people that are constantly trying to grow and become better. They don't have to all be like me, but they got to be like, trying, wanting to try new things and to change. So having, it's like when you're small and you're starting out, you got to get a couple of people that are like you, and then, share
and
your
really
core
what
values.
You mean by like you exactly is sharing your core values, right? Because really you need people who aren't like you to grow 100%. And scale the business.
Right, exactly.
So your strengths, your weaknesses, I guess I should say, are their strengths.
Right, yeah. So that's another tool that we do use. We use the print profile, we use the Colby profile, and we use the DISC profile to take assessments, to see kind of where we fall as a team. So as a leadership team, we're going to be doing that at our annual there.
Yes.
Our annual, we're going to be having Cassie come in, my wife, and she's going to be leading us in a print survey and looking at our leadership team and where our strengths and weaknesses are, and where with our profiles, so that's another culture building thing. It's building trust. It's through vulnerability. But I think like other things, like in the culture of the company, like I think we're a company that wants to give back. Like we're generous. We're generous with our donations. We're generous with our time, giving back to organizations. We like to see the community win. And so, we have, I don't know, probably now half a dozen or maybe even 10 different organizations that we give time to. We give our resources back to help different, Ellie's Place, Mike 23, Building 21 over there in Holt that we helped with that. You name them, but other people have brought those to the organization.
Yes.
And have championed kind of what's happening in those areas.
And that's key. And that's when you really see culture light on fire, right? Is when it's not just you anymore. It does need to start with you, especially as an entrepreneur, but it's the other people actually bringing that into the team.
Right.
And it just, can light on fire.
Yeah, when it's their idea versus my idea, there's going to be a lot more traction behind it. One of the things that I think, we talk a lot about, we open most of our meetings this way. And again, this is kind of a culture thing, but we always go around at our leadership L10 or
sales L10.
Sales L10. Yesterday we had a trade partner breakfast. So these are trade partners that aren't necessarily W2 employees or, people call them subcontractors. We call them trade partners, but go around the room and find out what happened in the last 90 days in your life that was positive, and so you got all these people in a room that don't really know each other. And by the end of it, you learned out this guy's, kids made big decisions in their life. This guy's, got
just
married,
had their first baby,
just got their first house or whatever. You learn so much about people, and that starts like just building a culture of positivity. Because the brain is like wired to remember 75% negative and 25% positive. And so overcoming that in your day-to-day basis is a really important thing, because that's a culture that we want to have. We want to have a positive culture. We want to see people succeed personally and professionally. And so we make that a part of the DNA of our meetings, the DNA of like who we are as a company. And that leads towards conversations more around what's going on with you. So when something goes wrong in the business, for me, I look at me and say, well, what needs a change in me? Because every issue in the business, if I have an issue with one of the salespeople, a client, whatever, I get to look back at myself and say, well, where do I need to grow? It's endless amount of opportunity to grow. Versus looking at somebody and saying it's their problem, they messed up, we did everything right, like that's just not, it doesn't really matter if we did everything right. Like the customer's upset, or we have a team member that's really struggling. Like, what is it that they need in order to grow to the next level?
Yeah, and I just can't help but think, as we're talking, one of the cool culture, events you could call it, that we do as a company is our vision board session. And this is something that you picked up from Sandler's sales training and system. And so talk a little bit about that, because I think that's a key culture event that we do every year as we wrap up the year and look forward to the next year.
Yeah, once a year I was part of a Sandler sales training for a long time, and they would host an event, and you'd get all the big boards out, and you would clip they'd get all the magazines out and you'd clip magazines and you kind of put a vision board together of kind of what you want in your life, you know? And it's amazing because you might get somebody that's got a really cool car or a cool house or whatever, but you got pictures of people's families and gatherings and Christmas time and, you know, the things
trips and vacations.
The things that mean most. And what you find is like when we start digging down inside of us as human beings, we're all human and we like connection. We like to be happy. You know, we like to press through and overcome challenging things. You know, and so you start seeing these come out on people's visions boards. It's super fun because you take an hour or two together. We do this now as a company. We'll get in a room together and we do this, and then people clip them out or you print them off the internet. Now you can just find pictures on the internet of things that you want to put on your vision board, things that you want to see come to pass, maybe in the next year, but maybe the next 20 years. You know what I'm saying? A vision board is not like a concrete, like this is how you do it. Like it's really for you. But it's just a beautiful thing to have somebody get up and kind of share about their vision board and why they put the different pictures on there. And again, you start learning about people's lives because at the end of the day, like I think culture is really building a company with people that are like-minded and that want to see each other succeed and be a part of a team and really impact lives and make a difference. And, you know, that just comes through being vulnerable and getting to know people and being willing to go to beyond the professional and break that barrier of like, well, this is my business and this is my personal life. It's like, you can live that way, but it's a divided life in my opinion, you know, and I would much rather live congruent and have, you know, doesn't mean that everything has to be all business, all personal or whatever, but there is just so much crossover. When I'm succeeding at work, it's typically because behind the scenes there's success in my relationships. And when I'm struggling at work, typically behind the scenes, there's some things that are going on that are challenging